First, I'd like to welcome you all. I am impressed with the amount of people here. I had some foreknowledge of it, and so I asked not only one but two lawyers to attend, just to make sure that this was done correctly. You have read presumably the moratorium on our website. I'd like to have I'd like to open up the comment period, and I would like the list of those people that have signed up in the back of the that sheet in the back. On your seats, or at least on many of the seats, were placed the procedures for the public hearing. And I'm going to read those off to you in the event that you didn't find one in your seat. These are the rules of engagement. The hearing should begin at 7 p.m. at the Recreation Park building. Written correspondence will be acknowledged and made part of the record. And I do want you to know that we have received 12 written comments, and we have reviewed them. Each of the board members has a copy of those 12 statements. The next item, thereafter public comment will be entertained. All of those who wish to speak must sign in on a sign-in sheet, which will be set out. There will be a limit of 3 minutes per person to allow everyone an opportunity to speak. People will be called to speak in order in which they sign the sheet. All comments should be preceded by the person giving their name and general address. We have a speaker right up there, a microphone right up there, so you can address your comments to the board. There will be no interruptions or cross conversations in the audience. Once everyone on the list has had an opportunity to speak once, if time permits, persons will be allowed to speak a second time. How many? Okay, we only have 6 members, so rather than 3 minutes, I will allow 5 minutes. So I'm opening the public hearing, and I'm going to let Mr. Gibo conduct. You may address your message to us, but thereafter, Mr. Gibo will take charge of the meeting. Yeah. No. So first to speak will be Sam DeLong. Where?
Good evening. I'm Sam DeLong, a year-round resident of Cape Vincent. I come expressing my gratitude to this board tonight. A couple of years ago, a petition was turned in to the town board of Cape Vincent with over 800 signatures asking this board to entertain a moratorium so that we could move forward as a community to protect our economic and health benefits. I am ecstatic that this board has finally acknowledged the over 800 people that have signed that petition tonight. I thank you very much.
Next person is Sally Boss.
I'll read the comment that I'm going to turn in to you. I am in support of your passing a 7-month moratorium with the idea of completing a new town zoning law and updating the comprehensive plan. Since March of 2006, when we attended a public hearing on wind turbine development at the fire station, there was an effort to change the zoning law. Efforts on 2 other occasions to update the zoning law have fallen by the wayside, mostly due to the fact that compromise was not an option on some people's parts. Therefore, we are at the 4th time, and 7 years later, still faced with the task of updating the zoning law and the comprehensive plan. There should be no excuse for anyone on this board to deny the moratorium so that the existing committees can finish the task of crossing all Ts and dotting all Is and accomplish this task. If any of you vote against the passage, it only shows to all of us that you are more concerned about yourself, your pride, your image, than you are about the good of all the people of Cape Vincent.
Thank you. Dave Lamora.
Good evening. My name's David Lamora. I live on Route 12 here in Cape Vincent. Actually, Sam has already made mention of some of what I was going to say. In June of 2009, I presented a petition to the then sitting board that was signed by close to 800 people from the Cape Vincent area, requesting a one-year moratorium at that time. The intent of that moratorium was to allow the town to develop an ordinance or a wind law, whatever you want to call it, to regulate or deal with wind development without the threat of an impending project. That was really the key, that you shouldn't, in the name of good government and in good practice, the process of developing a law or an ordinance or regulations shouldn't be done with the threat of a project looming over your head, with the project already having been developed and defined and by all intents and purposes already in place. So I applaud this board, much as Sam and Sally have said, for organizing a review and possible revisions of our comp plan and our zoning law. I still believe that it's essential that we do that without the threat of an impending project. And so I would like to, whether it's official or not, I would like to speak for those 800 people that signed that petition. I'd like you to dust that petition off wherever it sits in the town office and consider those 800 people urging you now to pass this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyle Wood.
Lyle Wood. I live at 36080 New York State, Route 12E, right here in Cape Vincent. And unlike the previous three speakers, first of all, I'd like to say, especially John and Cliff, I'm thoroughly disgusted with the board. You were elected to do everything above board and do everything on the up and up for the Cape Vincent, but yet you continue to do things behind closed doors. There's a Zogby poll last year that the town paid over $12,000 for. Where's the results of that? What were the results of that? And then you continue to go and you have a moratorium, or you've all stated that this will pass tonight without even the public comment or the written comments that were sent in. So you already made up your mind that you were going to pass this tonight without, I mean, why even having a meeting tonight if you already made up your minds that you're going to pass it? You know? And the other thing is, you're having this right in the middle of winter in February. Where's all the seasonal residents? Why don't they get to voice their opinion? Why not have it in July? But yeah, you're having it in the middle of February, and right after you guys get elected to the board, and shove this right down everybody's throat without even any comment period or anything. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Paul Mason.
Paul Mason. I'm a lifelong resident of the Cape Vincent, year-round resident, always have been. I made my living here in the Cape Vincent. It's not like some seasonal people that come in and try to tell us what to do. I made my living here, and it wasn't easy as a dairy farmer. I have land here, and I would challenge anybody to follow in my shoes for the last 50-some years. But that's beside the point. I am against this moratorium of wind. For one reason, like Lyle mentioned, a year ago it was a very urgent, and you told me it was urgent because you wanted to get the survey out before the people left the South. That was your very words to me. So this survey was taken. 63% of the people that was surveyed were seasonal residents. 38% were year-round residents. Pretty fair survey, as you ask me. Now, the results of that survey, and I think this is why there was never any action, because you were too embarrassed to follow through with. I don't know why you was doing it. It spent some tax dollars, money. But 47% was strongly in favor of wind. 41% opposed. And that's a majority of the seasonal residents that made this survey up. And I can't figure out why, almost a year later, nothing has been done. Why we spent that money is beyond me. And now, on the other issue, if you're going to stop wind, you better look at your laws in the Jefferson County Ag District people. And the majority of these people that want a personal turbine. So if you start putting personal turbines in with wind farms, you better watch your laws, because I will challenge you. I have a right to farm. A wind turbine on my farm is an acceptable agricultural practice. And if you try stopping that, you got yourself a battle. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Edsel.
I'm not really sure you want me to use the microphone, because I think I'll blast you all out of the room, but whatever works for you. My name is Rich Etzel. I've lived here all my life. I went to school here. My wife and I raised 5 children, all who did exceptionally well in college. Thank you, Thousand Islands High School. I invested in this area when no one else did. My children and I farmed here, so that's the background. Now, I met with Urban prior to the January 30th letter, and I told you that I would support a moratorium if the moratorium had a fixed end. It was not going to be like the town of Lyme and go on forever as a way of stopping the project. Right? I said I would support it, as long as you were going to use it to come up with some product. Either you're going to outlaw them, or you're going to say where they can be allowed here or not allowed, and we're going to be done with this. 7 years is too long. People won't talk to anybody anymore. Right? Then I believe the supervisor made a mistake. He sent out a letter, a cease and desist letter, on these personal turbines. Some people had permits, some people didn't. The first mistake was you should have been a man, picked up the phone, called the people, said, we got an issue here, can we work it out? I think it could have been worked out. My legal advisor, for what it's worth, does not feel that you have the authority to sign the letter. But I'm still hoping that we can get past this point in Cape Vincent's history. So if you can have your attorney show me some section of the law that says you do have this, then I will, be quiet about it. If you can't, I'm one of those people holding a valid permit, and it's been held for more than 60 days, so I have some basis in law. If you feel, and your attorneys feel, and they're sitting here and you're paying the money, they should be able to tell you this. If you didn't have the legal authority for that letter, then I would recommend that you table a vote tonight and you spend a week or two trying to reach out to the 5 or 6 people, or ever how many people there are, trying to give them the opportunity to reach some kind of a compromise solution. What do I mean? Specifically, you've taken their money, but you said they can't have a permit, so you've stolen their money, technically. So somehow, maybe they would say, well, I'll wait through the moratorium as long as you guarantee me that my 6 months will start the day the moratorium ends. Because these were valid applications. I think you could work something out. I think the people would. If you don't do that, and you don't have the valid standing, then we're going to be involved in some kind of a brouhaha. Now, if when the board passes their law for the wind law down the road, whatever you do, yay, nay, maybe some places, not the others, you need to understand that if you put them in such a tight box that they can't be done in Cape Vincent, then Albany will make the decision. You need to realize that going in. This is not, you can't just say, we're not having them, end of the day, because then Albany does it. And instead of having 50 or 60 or 100, you may end up with 300. You need to consider that. And I, as a landowner, have a right to earn money off my land. And I defy any of you to drive down the Burnt Rock Road and Swamp Road where I own property, and my wife owns property with me, and tell me that that area is not suitable for wind turbines. The fact that somebody who's 10 miles away in the town doesn't like it, looks are not a justification. We are not Cooperstown. We don't tell everybody what color to paint your house. So I just try to give you a few areas where I think you need to use a little discretion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last on the list is Hester Chase.
My name is Hester Chase, Bedford Corners Road. For 7 and more years, Cape Vincent has been driven by wind. Without rules, we have struggled, costing neighbors and friends. Time that could have been spent one way was swallowed by the wind. A moratorium's time has come to develop rules, to remember that we all live here, that we share this place, that we all bleed red blood. For 7 and more years, people have organized, been claimed by one side or another as their understanding led them. This is a democracy. We count the votes. We learn in sports, grace in winning and in losing. May Cape Vincent find grace.
Thank you. That ends the end of our public comment period. I'd like to switch this over to you.
Urban, on your hearing procedures, you indicated that if anybody wanted a second chance to speak, you might give it if time permitted. Are you going to open it up for that at this point to see if anybody wanted to speak?
Any of the previous speakers, would they like to speak again? Okay.
If not, then Urban, I think you can entertain a motion by your board to close the public hearing.
And I have a motion for that. Okay. Second? Okay.
A question. You said that you were going to acknowledge the written correspondence, so you're just going to say there is written correspondence, or you're
Yeah.
going to make some note about what's said? Or?
I will tell you, these will be in the office for anybody to look at. There are 12 of them, and they all are in favor of the moratorium. Any other discussion before I ask for a vote?
Are we going to discuss it before we?
What about reading the moratorium?
Just to
gotta
vote to
change.
close the public comment.
Oh, okay.
Well, once you close the public hearing, you can open your special meeting and have that discussion.
Okay. We will have discussion after our regular or special session. Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now I'd like to open the our special meeting, and is there board discussion on the matter?
I'd like to take a few minutes if I could.
Yep.
I mean, we're here tonight to pass a moratorium on a wind law, and I know you've all read this, so it's just going to be short. This is my personal opinion. This is in our Association of Town magazine, and the full context is on the website. It reads, State Power Plant Siting Law, Article 10 of the Public Service Law Summary. The Power New York Act of 2011, Chapter 388, signed into law on August 4th, 2011, renewed Article 10 of the Public Service Law, thereby preempting the local planning and zoning procedures with respect to larger scale power generating facilities, including renewable energy sources such as industrial wind towers. And just to add to that, the membership on the siting board, public service law, the New York State Board on Electric Generation Siting and Environment, which shall be in the department and consist of 7 positions. And on this board will be the chair of the Public Service Department, who shall serve as chair of the board, the Commissioner of Environmental Conservation, the Commissioner of Health, the chair of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, the Commissioner of Economic Development, and ad hoc public members. Ad hoc public members serve on the siting board to hear an application on a power plant located in their county. In addition to that, and I don't know if you've done this yet, Urban, Public Service Law 161, if the application is to site a power plant to be located in a town outside village, the chief executive officer of the town has the authority to nominate 4 candidates to serve as an ad hoc member on a state siting board for an application to site a power plant in the town. And that has to be submitted to the Senate and the Speaker of the Assembly. I don't know if you've even taken names or if anybody's expressed any interest. Okay. So this is just a lot of this is just my personal opinion. So there is a law already on the books for industrial power, industrial wind towers. I could support a moratorium for personal wind towers for 6 months. If that's, if we're ever going to stop the bleeding and heal this town, we've got to get out of the industrial wind tower business, and we can. We have a law. We have a state law. I support updating the planning laws, and I support updating the comprehensive plan. But we have a law already on the books, New York State, and in the board I read to you, I mean, you've got all those members and all the resources to go with that. And I realize that the market right now is for wind power. There's none there. A lot of it is driven by the hydraulic fracturing for natural gas, also called fracking. And as you know, that's become an issue not just here in New York, but across the United States. And I'll just read you a couple short things on that. The unconventional gas production, 2011 Cornell University study found that burning shale gas releases more greenhouse gas pollution than burning conventional gas or oil, methanol, formaldehyde, and other known air pollutants found near fracking sites. Texas regulators have also found air samples near the wells contain high levels of neurotoxins, carcinogens, and benzene. And along with that, New York State hasn't decided whether they're going to allow future fracking. If they don't, if Governor Cuomo and his committees rule against further fracking in New York State, this is my belief, wind and solar, again, will be sought after clean alternative energy sources. And I think Article X, Article 10, the law that's already there, would make us a neutral party, but we still would have ad hoc committee members that could express the opinions of the town, and we could start to heal this town. If not, I don't ever see it healing. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just like to say, with respect to Article 10, that deals with everything above 25 megawatts, but we could still very well have some industrial development. Some people apply through our planning board on a local level for an industrial development. Yes, you're not going to have 135 or 140 of them, but you very well might have an application for 10, 12, or up to 20, depending on how they're configured. That so, it still it behooves a community to, if they don't have anything on the books, that you really have to provide some basis and some regulation for this. And furthermore, as you go through Article 10, it doesn't say, in fact, that they usurp all local law in that. It says it takes a look at it and finds out if it's reasonable and it isn't unduly burdensome to the siting board. So all of this says, in effect, too, even though we have in Article 10, the game has changed, that it's still very important for communities to update their zoning. If they haven't done anything to provide guidelines and that type of thing, it really should. It's incumbent on all of us to do that.
I would also add that New York State is still a home state, and I think we have an obligation to exercise home rule. If it's going to be usurped, then it'll be usurped, but we're still going to let them know how we feel.
I'd like to enter a comment too.
Yep.
I just think that you have to put in the context that the comprehensive plan is supposed to be updated every so often, and the zoning law is supposed to be updated every 5 years. And we're delinquent actually on both of those. The wind projects are large enough physically that they're going to have an impact on the town overall. They certainly have a potential impact. And I think if you step back and look at the laws that cover preserving communities, you have to look at the Historic Preservation Act from the 60s and the secret laws in New York State, and all of these call for input from interested parties in such a way that potentially adverse impacts can be identified and resolved if possible and mitigated, and then decide whether or not a project is valid or not. At this particular point, wind has come in as something that's very new. It's so new that I really think, despite the fact that there are some projects around the U.S., that we need to step back and take a look at what it is and have an emphasis on input from the local community. What makes Cape Vincent Cape Vincent? We have magnificent resources here. We are an international community with aesthetics all along the lake and the river. We have a blend of magnificent historic preservation properties, and we need to make all of that known by bringing these things up to date. This moratorium will give us the chance to do that. It will give us the focus to do that. I've been recently registered as a stakeholder with the Public Service Commission and talked to them about this. There's a focus on behalf of the state to reach out to communities and talk to them, but there's a burden from the community to do this. We need to perfect our comprehensive land plan, and we need to perfect our zoning law in order to be able to be responsible to the community. All of these things sound like very idealistic things and very nice things, but if you take a look at them, you'll also see that our assessment lies underneath all of these aesthetic assets. So it's something that I think is an obvious thing to do. Some people are very cynical about this and attempt to stop wind. I really see it as a negative action, simply saying we're going to stop, we're going to step back, we're going to engage in an analytical process, an inclusive analytical process, and very focused on the common good.
Further discussion?
Yeah,
You want
if I could. Yeah. Much simpler on my end. The public has asked for a moratorium. There was a petition with 800 names some years ago, and that petition was not even looked at. We have that in front of us, as well as we have 16 people that have commented in favor of a moratorium against 3 people that commented against the moratorium. I feel I have no choice. If I'm representing the people of Cape Vincent and I have that many people that are in favor of this, then I have to vote for it.
Okay. We need to discuss the moratorium itself now, not the reasons for or against. But I'd ask Mark Gibo to take over in this part and see if there are any changes or additions or whatever to the moratorium that we might be suggested by the board.
Since the time the moratorium was proposed at your last meeting, there was a comment made by, I think somebody on your board, I'm not sure who, about adding some language which would pick up a reference to third-party utility companies, so that it's for distribution not only to customers but also to third-party utility companies. That was one change. And then there was also the question if it was going to be for 7 months, whether we would take it through instead of August 31, since we're here on February 7th, if instead of August 31 we would use the September 7th date. So those 2 changes were suggested. I don't know if the board wants to think about those. If you were going to make those changes, you would also have to consider whether you believe those to be major changes which might require a new hearing, or whether you consider them to be minor changes which would not.
Well, I think we do need that language in that, at the end of that one section where you're talking, that first sentence where it says wind generating facilities, you really, at the end of that, after customers, you have to have or third-party utility companies, that additional phrase. And as far as moving the date to September 7th, I think that's reasonable, and either one of those changes, I don't think changes the moratorium substantively enough to have another hearing.
So I guess I need to hear the rest of the board weigh in on that a little bit to know if those are things you want to do.
Well, okay, then let's present that as a motion.
I will resolve to make those changes.
To amend the language to include those changes?
The language to include those changes was adding or third-party utility companies to the end of that sentence that ends with customers right now, and also to change the date to September 7th, 2012 instead of August 31st.
Do we vote on that, and then
Well,
on a
this is
separate?
just to amend the text. If somebody wants to second that, they can amend the text.
I have Brooks seconded.
Brooks
We'll
already
put a
did.
second to that.
Okay, further discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye. No.
Aye.
Aye.
If you feel that you're prepared then to move ahead with this, the next thing you have to do is to look at the State Environmental Quality Review Act part of this. Short environmental assessment form was prepared and submitted at your last meeting. You now have to classify the action as either type 1, type 2, or unlisted. I can tell you that the type 2 list under the secret regulations does list the passage of the moratorium as a type 2 action. Unless your board feels there's something else more significant or outside of that, I think it would be appropriate for there to be a motion to declare it a type 2 action.
May I have such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
That it be a type 2 action.
Motion there'll be a type 2 action.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, your second. Okay, discussion on that motion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay.
Then the next thing would be just to cover the basis, to make a negative declaration that the passage of the moratorium will not have a significant detrimental environmental impact.
Do you understand that? This calls for
Sure.
a negative declaration.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that will have a negative environmental impact.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion? In favor?
Aye. No.
Aye.
Then if you're prepared to move ahead with the moratorium as amended, somebody would need to, I think there's a resolution that Michelle was working on today.
You want to read that?
This is resolution number 16, that the town board of the town of Cape Vincent hereby agrees to adopt local law number 1 of 2012 with respect to a moratorium on wind generating facilities. The moratorium shall be in place for a period of 7 months. 7 months to allow the town board to consider and implement sufficient regulations.
Want to do a roll call?
Roll call vote, Supervisor Urban Hershey,
Yay.
Councilman Brooks Bragdon,
Yes.
Councilman Mickey Orvis,
No. But you never had anybody move on it either, Michelle.
you're right.
So moved.
Second.
Supervisor Urban Hershey,
Aye.
Councilman Brooks Bragdon,
Yes.
Councilman Mickey Orvis,
No.
Councilman Cliff Schneider,
Aye.
Councilman John Verne,
Yes.
Okay. Motion has passed. Other business? Okay.
Just one thing. You're scheduling all these work sessions. I'd like to pick a Thursday we're gonna do this, because I'm still working, and I have had swaps that kind of interfere. If it hasn't been done tonight, but consider for our next meeting, to pick like if we're gonna do it, our meeting's the third Thursday, maybe we can have our work session the second Thursday or the fourth Thursday, so we could have the same day every month. That's just a request I would like to have.
This Thursday.
We have one this Thursday, yes.
Okay, well,
But you got
Yeah.
one for next Wednesday also.
Yeah. That's the one with the, getting together with the village board and also LDC board to discuss goals and priorities.
If we could just think that over, and then our next regular board meeting, if we could select one day a month, I would request that.
okay. This has been a busy month. Any further business? I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
A motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried.
What did you just propose or say?
If we're gonna have a work session,